Hi, listeners. Thank you for joining our podcast. I'm together today with Nicole and Nomi. So let's start Nicole, to introduce herself, please.
Yes.
The
hi.
mic is to you.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and I am from Chicago, Illinois, but I've been moving overseas by teaching English overseas, and I just finished traveling to 7 countries for a month and a half. So it's been great, and I'm looking forward to just sharing more about my journey and how to be able to help people travel as well.
Okay, so maybe you can start. So Chicago, and what was the next step? Europe? Maybe you can elaborate more about this, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Chicago, and I studied abroad in Spain. I just got my master's in global higher education. I used to work as a university advisor and help students study overseas in Chicago. I used to work with University of Chicago, Loyola, and other predominantly private universities and public universities in the USA. But I wanted to have more of a global exposure instead of only working in the USA. So that's why I decided to go study overseas. And by studying overseas, I've gained so much in terms of perspectives, languages, meeting people from all over the world, and I feel like because I was able to study overseas, it helped me change so much as a person. Not so much traveling, but more by living overseas, being completely immersed in the culture, learning a language that I did not grow up speaking, and it's just been a life-changing experience that I wish anyone would be able to study overseas when they're in the university, or if they finish university and they want to pursue a master's or a PhD.
But here's the question: are you actually was born in the U.S.? Because if I hear you, then that's not someone I know from people who was born in the U.S. They know only the U.S. But you sound like someone who spent more time before you came there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting that you say that, because the thing is, I was born in Chicago, but I grew up going to Poland every single summer because my family's from Poland, and in my house we spoke Polish and English. So I always felt like I had a very different experience growing up, as opposed to being surrounded by Americans who only have one experience, only speaking English or only traveling within the USA. I never really pictured USA as being my home, because I felt like Poland was always my home away from my home. So I felt like the exposure of having Polish, as a language being spoken in my house, and always going to Poland for 3 months every single summer. And I traveled a lot with my family as a child. And I always just was obsessed with just traveling. I felt like just the early exposure and having friends from all walks of life really helped me become who I am to this day. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I mean, your schools, you went, of course, in English, right? So you mean that's like elementary school that was in Chicago or was somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. So my elementary school was in Chicago. However, I did go to Polish school briefly when I was younger. However, I felt like since I didn't have to go to Polish school, because my mom was always speaking Polish to me and my brother, and I was always exposed to the language, I didn't really necessarily feel like I needed to continue with the schooling. However, I also had Polish-speaking friends growing up, so I think that could have been it. And I come from a predominantly Polish-speaking area, at least where my suburb is. My neighbors are Polish. We literally have stores that say Mówimy po polsku, which means we speak Polish. So I think it could just be due to my upbringing and how my mother, even though she was born in Poland and moved to the USA, she always wanted to keep the culture very close with me and my brother. She didn't want us to lose our culture, even though we are born in the USA and we do speak English predominantly with our friends. She just always wanted to keep the culture just very close to our heart and embedded within the family.
I mean, there's one thing, because I lived also in the States, and I lived in West Michigan, Grand Rapids, but that's not like Chicago, right? Mm-hmm. But I spent some time in Chicago because of work. But I saw that, I mean, there's neighborhoods, and it's similar in different bigger cities in the US, they have this where the immigrants and then they stick together in their hood. Call it a hood, right? Or call it a barrio in Spanish, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, and it also has an influence of the food, of the restaurant, because I remember when I was there was a lot of Polish sausages and this kind of influence, right? And later I lived in Toronto, and there's also that kind of group of Polish people. So I mean, it's like in the bigger cities in all North America, they're having these immigrants from Europe, right? So, but what happened then after you lived there, and then you said you want to go out and teaching? That was your passion. So can you go further with that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to Israel in 2019 because my father is Jewish, and there was a really cool program if you are either 100% Jewish by having the family members or grandparents, or if you're half Jewish, since I'm considered half Jewish. So I went to Israel and I went to the Western Wall, and it was an incredible experience. And as much as I loved my life in Chicago, I needed a change. So I went to the Western Wall and I was in Israel for 2 weeks, and I decided that I needed to make a change. So I prayed to Moses, and I prayed to God that I wanted a change. And then after that, I went back to Chicago after Israel and traveled around Israel. And then I got my TOEFL, which stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language.
TOEFL.
Yeah, TOEFL. Yeah. So I was able to go teach English overseas, and from there on, I lived in Thailand, South Korea, Mexico, and then I just finished the master's in Spain. But I also did do some teaching while I was living in Madrid, Spain.
Okay, so first you did the TOEFL, and then you went to university to get your degree in teaching, right?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily study teaching. I studied psychology, but it's an actual school that teaches you how to become a teacher, to teach English as a foreign language. So I did it online. I also actually worked at a university, and I did actually teach adults business English. I helped them with reading, speaking, writing, everything related to the English-speaking language. And I really felt like that experience led me to wanting to go move overseas, because I had people from all over the world, from China, Germany, Russia, Poland, Georgia, the country, which I felt was incredible. I didn't even know what Georgia, the country, was when I was younger. Now I know, but I didn't know, right? And I felt like non-Americans really know that Georgia is a state and also a country too as well. So I just felt like the exposure, talking to the people after I finished teaching, getting to know them, going for a wine, going to go to the park, really getting to know those people, opened my eyes that there is a whole new life outside the USA. And I think that I need to take the time to explore the world and see how it is. So it was just that experience, and traveling to Israel and Spain as well.
Speaking of Israel, actually it reminds me of documentation. I don't know if you have watched, called Jerusalem. Yeah, and I found it interesting because there's a actually Polish girl in that documentary and telling her history about her family from Poland, but they've been moving to USA also when she was very young, and so she always have this the bio culture growing up with her. So I think you and that Polish girls really have similar background, similar experiences, and also their family. They have maybe a quarter of the Jewish origin or Jewish blood. I mean that Polish girl. So when you're talking about your experiences, your background, and it remind me of that documentary about this Polish girl in that. In that documentary, I mean, really interesting. I was thinking maybe if that girl was you in that documentary.
Maybe in the past time, Very cool. Yeah. Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, have you watched that Jerusalem documentary, by the way?
Yeah, I saw
so
it.
Amazing.
I saw it not too long ago, but I think I have to watch it again in order to be able to get a better perspective and clarity. So I will watch it. Thank you.
We can next time watch together. Maybe find a time.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
show. Yeah.
So
Okay.
was it in Netflix or where was this
I
documentary?
think you can watch on Netflix. Yeah,
Or is
for
it
sure.
in YouTube available?
YouTube, I don't think you can have the complete, the full, like.
Just the teaser, right?
Yeah,
That's what
just
it
the maybe the trailer.
Yeah, the trailer,
But
right.
for sure you can watch on the
But
Netflix.
who produced that? Like a TV station or some famous documentary?
Maybe the documentary or director.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not like from a
documentary.
huge company or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have heard about this, right? Heard
No,
of
I haven't.
Jerusalem.
No.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean, I
very
know-
picturesque, like the views, the constructions, those churches. Because in Jerusalem, where there are four religions, like coexisting
Yeah,
together.
I'm aware of that because I'm a kind of fan of history. So I've
Yeah.
never been to Israel, but I was also not to the Georgia, the other Georgia. I was Georgia in the U.S. But to come back to you, so now you mentioned traveling, but do you lived also in another country in your lifetime other than the U.S.?
No, I always grew up living in just USA.
But you visit.
A lot of countries. A lot.
I mean, I did. I would say mostly Poland because the majority of my family lives in Poland. But we also went to like Mexico, Panama. We went to like Aruba as well. But
Aruba, I was there too for holiday.
Me too. Great place, by the way.
I know.
Yeah, it's nice to just relax on the beautiful sand to see the pigs. They have the water pigs. Did you see the water pigs?
Yeah, and then that's also it's the closest to South America I ever went because I never went further.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's also funny because I rented a car. It was so a waste because there's nowhere to go because if you drive,
That's right.
it's like it's better. We had this the quad. That was fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To drive with a quad, but a car was useless.
Yeah, because it's 90 kilometers, right? It's very small. Aruba,
Yeah,
and
you
that's
do.
it.
I mean, in one day you drove up all the four corners.
And you're like,
You
that's
went there?
No, I
Did
never
you ever
been
went to the Caribbean?
No, I wish I would. I would in the future. Yeah, like especially South America. It's all like it's so. I'm so attracted to their culture, the music, the dance. Especially the
Bachata.
bachata is originally from Cuba. So for sure, one day I'm gonna go to Cuba to see like how this their histories, how it evolved from the modern dance from the ancient moves to modern moves. I mean, it's for me it's so fantastic everything there.
So let's talk about bachata. You know what she did? She brought me to this trial class, so I had to learn bachata. That was like
Trial
something.
class, yeah.
Because I'm not a good dancer, and it was for me. Then we came too late, and then I missed the first part. And then
The first very important
and
basic
I had
steps,
not a good
right?
time because I felt totally lost. I mean, I wouldn't know what to hold and do moving, and I just want to focus on my footwork, right? That was my basics, right? But then I found out that they have this ermita going on. By the way, they had some issues.
I know ermita.
They have some issues with the police on the weekend for some reason.
No way.
Last weekend, the policeman came to give them fine because, as the reporter said, the music was too loud. They always playing too loud music, so they got annoyed, and then they report to the policeman, and the police came and they fined them some €100 as the punishment.
Terrible.
Yeah.
That's so bad.
I mean, it's a public place, right? People just do whatever they want to do in the public.
And it's so ridiculous, right? Because apparently on the Saturday, it was Saturday, right? So I walked because there was a concert from the city.
Wow.
I saw that they're building the stage, so I had to go there. So I walked all the way over there. That's where they're wanted to build a new metro station. And they had some protests because they don't cut the trees and want to protect the trees.
Right.
So I walked all over there. And then on the way, there was one party after the other close to the river. I mean, and how loud was the music there? You heard it. I said, oh, there's the concert. No, party after party. So, I mean, probably there was, at that day, there was a wedding. Maybe that people complained about this making too much
Yeah,
noise.
I'm a little bit surprised because since I was living very close to Ermita, so every time I would just walk to Puerto de Angel Metro, I always saw them dancing, but I never really heard of like any fines because I was in a group. I'm not in actively anymore, but I was in all these different WhatsApp groups. You know, when I first moved here, they're like, oh, there's like a meetup or there's a dancing bachata meetup for tonight. So there's always organizing something here in
basically
Madrid,
every
always.
day. Yeah, basically every day they're
there's a
organizing
party.
some either salsa, either bachata or kizomba. Yeah, like literally every day. It's so
Exactly.
amazing. Like for free, you can dance
It's
whenever you
incredible.
want. Yeah,
Yes.
so nice.
And she asked me to come and just make videos, and then that's good for me because then I can see how they're doing this, and then yeah. Anyway, so but it's also for me because I like to almost make a documentary about my life in Madrid, to go and see just sit there and then feel the ambience and then see what's going on. Like I saw this guy who asked 5 women before he found someone who danced with him. I found that interesting, right? And then also you see always the same man coming there and yeah.
Man, woman, not only man, right?
Yeah.
No, I see always the same man, but the women are always different for me. But anyway,
Different people.
you come there often.
Yeah, I'm an often comer.
Okay, let's
Often
switch.
newcomer in
You're a
Madrid.
newcomer,
That's
yeah.
right. Often newcomer in Madrid.
Exactly,
Yes.
yeah.
So often, I love it.
Yeah.
So before we talk more about you, Nicole wanted to talk about studying in Europe is cheaper than the US. So you asked me that. So maybe you can tell us about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, I applied for 2 universities, one in Chicago and then one in Madrid, Spain. And so the tuition in Chicago was going to cost me $20,000 for 2 years. And I decided, wow, if I pay 20,000 USD, I won't be able to save up for myself in the future if I want to, buy a place if I want to, and I won't really have too much money for traveling, which I prioritize traveling. So I decided to look for schools outside the USA, and I went on LinkedIn and I just typed in, okay, like who can I talk to who studied global higher education, because I'm interested in working in like this niche field with helping people study abroad at a university or anything of that nature. And I started talking to a girl, and she's from the USA, but she's been teaching English in Spain, and she got her master's, and she told me, if you want to study for 1 year and then it's fully accredited, you can then get a master's in Madrid, live in Madrid, continue learning Spanish. And I said, I'm sold. That's it. Yes,
For the same money
Yes,
or less
yeah,
money.
yes,
Yeah.
that's it. So
Wow.
I told my mother. She was not happy. My mom is like, well, you just came back from living overseas. I think that you want to build a life in Chicago. I said, no, I don't want to build a life in Chicago. No, thank you. I've lived from so many different countries. I can't imagine going back to like an ordinary lifestyle,
Yeah,
like doing the
ordinary.
same thing over and over.
Every day the same routine.
Every day the same
right?
routine. Tipping at a restaurant, which I don't want to tip anymore. Like in the USA, I refuse. I don't want to give anyone money that I don't have to give.
And
I
you know
And
what?
take this money to travel, right? Right? That's what should I do,
And
right?
you,
No, I don't want to.
and you know why these people in the US are really depend on tipping, because
Yeah.
their salary is too low.
Exactly.
Here's
That's
the
right.
here's the opposite. Nobody is tipping because the salary is more regulated, right?
And it's equal, and they pay like their workers equally,
Yes,
as opposed to USA.
doesn't matter which jobs you're doing, right?
Exactly.
You got the same like average or
Yeah.
Yeah.
more or
that-
less the same salary.
Yeah, that's true. And also another thing too is I don't want to be surrounded by people who think very small. They don't like really think like on a global scale.
That's
They only
really
think
very
like USA is
important.
the best.
Yeah, yeah, the
And I can tell you,
mentality.
I don't think so at all. But anyways, yeah, I told my mom I want to continue learning Spanish since I lived in Mexico. I really want to become like trilingual as it is. And so I decided like I have to do this for myself, even though my mother was not very happy with my decision. But then after, I moved to Spain, she saw how happy I was. I was documenting my experiences. I always compared USA to Europe all the time. I'm like, this life is way better than the American lifestyle. But yeah, I've just been really happy, and I saved a lot of money. And I really feel like going to school in Germany, going to school in Austria is way better than going to any school in the USA. But people typically think of USA as like the highly prestigious universities. So maybe that's the reason why they think of it. But I personally have two experiences because I studied my bachelor's in USA and then I just got my master's in Madrid, Spain.
Question to Mexico. So you said you worked there as an English teacher. So where in Mexico? Mexico City?
Mexico City, yeah.
That's probably interesting. So I never went actually to Mexico City because when I lived in Canada, I traveled to Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Aruba, and then also Mexico, but Mexico, Cancun, right? Like where all the tourists going, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, so... But how was your experience if you compare the life in Mexico and in the US? I mean, other than the language, right? But Mexico City is probably also international city. So how was your experience? I'm interested in this.
Yeah, definitely. So when I was living in Mexico City last year, I wasn't necessarily teaching. I was interning with an education tech company.
Oh, wow.
So I actually helped them like with English speaking exams. So I typically traveled all over Mexico. I went to 15 states in Mexico.
Wow.
And I didn't tell people that, but yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I administered English speaking exams for IELTS and TOEFL, and I really helped my students gain the extra level of English that they needed in order to receive the certificate from Oxford University in Oxford English. On top of that, I also helped them create an app for English speaking people. So it's kind of similar to Duolingo, but it is sponsored through. Yeah, it's similar to Duolingo, but it's actually quite similar. It's sponsored through Duolingo, but the thing is, it's affiliated with Oxford University.
Oxford.
Yeah, Oxford.
Sponsored by Oxford.
Sponsored by Oxford.
That's the real English. I mean,
that's the British English. That's right.
Oxford English. That's what I learned in school. That's what I said. Oxford English.
Yeah.
I didn't went to Oxford, but it's like Oxford.
It is. It is the proper English. You're right.
And then everything else it's a slang, right?
Yeah, Americans. Yes, it's completely slang. I completely agree. So I just did that, and it was an incredible experience. But I think the biggest takeaway from my experience living in Mexico was learning Spanish. Because when I was living in South Korea, I actually took Spanish classes.
In South Korea?
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't want to learn Korean. I should have learned it. It's just personally, I felt like it's not as practical and useful as opposed to learning Chinese, German, Spanish, Russian even possibly.
Because of the population of speakers, or why are you thinking about?
I just feel like a majority of people speak more Spanish than like Korean. I think
Definitely.
so. And it's more practical when you're traveling in Latin
sure.
America. When you go to like even like Europe, whether it's Spain or Portugal, they can understand a bit, but not too much. And even in the USA.
Because you don't find other Korean-speaking countries when you go.
It's only two.
For traveling.
North and south.
That's right, exactly. So I just feel like it was more practical for me to like really learn Spanish, and just like know me, I'm obsessed with Spanish culture. I've been like that since I was 16 years old.
Oh wow!
So like I learned Spanish in high school,
I started
in high school. And I told my mother I wanted to become a Spanish teacher when I was 16. And my mom is like, no, you're white. No one's going to take you seriously as a Spanish teacher.
Why?
I know, because that was just like my mom's way of thinking. But anyways, the thing is, my first teacher, her name was Professor Wood, was from the USA, and she lived in Spain for 6 years. And she learned Spanish, and then she went to the USA and became a Spanish instructor. But I mean, after her teaching, I was incredibly obsessed with Spanish culture, like watching the movies, listening to the music. And I think from there on, from my second year of high school, I became very interested in just the Spanish culture and Latin American culture and that kind of thing. Yeah.
It's interesting. So, I mean, even in Europe, in music like EDM or electronic. It's a bigger label, electronic dance music. But I know some German producer. He worked with a guy from Ecuador, and he made the song Ecuador, right? And then he made another song, probably with the same guy, and made Adelante. So that was before I actually learned Spanish. So my touch to Spanish, and then also the university I studied, Gutenberg, had a partnership with Valencia.
Wow.
With the university, but I never found out which one. But I was supposed to go there. I was everything booked, but I had an accident, so I couldn't make it.
Right.
So then I would have go even earlier to Spain, because then later I worked in Spain, and I also liked it very much. So that's why I'm here. But not too much about me. So let's go to what do you plan to do? So you said you travel around countries here in Europe, and then you made your master degree, so congrats, your milestone probably in your life.
Yeah.
And then what's next?
That's good. So that's a good question. My next step is I'm waiting to get my EU passport next month.
Okay.
I'm going back to Chicago to visit my family. But once I have the passport in hand, I'm going to be applying for either remote jobs or companies in Spain or universities. And I want to be able to live in Madrid, and that's it.
Wow.
I don't want to move into other countries anymore. I've been doing this since I was 27. I'm going to be 32 years old in October.
Still young,
So,
come on.
thank you.
But that's a great plan.
Yeah.
Settle down in Madrid.
Maybe older
Yeah.
than you, but
Yeah, I want to settle down here. It's just
I want to settle down.
Yeah, I want to settle down in Madrid. And it's so crazy because I came to Spain when I was 25 just to visit my brother who's studying abroad in Barcelona. And just by being in Spain, the first few days, I told myself, I have to come back. I don't know how I'm going to come back. First I'll go to Asia, then I'll go to Central America.
It was all the way
then
around.
I'll circle
make
around
a
the
round,
world.
yes.
And then I came back. And honestly,
Amazing.
even yesterday, I flew back from Paris because I got back yesterday during the day. I was so jet lagged, so tired from traveling and backpacking. But even the minute I saw the greenery and Madrid, I had this big smile on my face. And I was like, oh my God, I feel at home in Madrid. So
Home here.
So another person who fall in love with Madrid. I met a bunch of people who
yo
tell me,
también.
But how about the experience in Barcelona? You have been living in Barcelona and Madrid. So can you tell me which city you prefer, or what's the differences between these two major cities, the biggest?
Yeah. So the
Spain?
thing is, I didn't live in Barcelona. I just visited Barcelona 3 times already because
okay.
my brother, he studied abroad in Barcelona and he lived there.
Oh, he lived there.
Yeah, he lived there. Yeah. So I like Barcelona, but I think it's too Americanized.
Oh,
Do you know the reason why?
Americanized.
well, that's an interesting
Oh, that's the
opinion.
first time I heard about this.
Wait, because I want to explain the reason
Yeah,
why.
please.
So I think
I'm
because
curious.
Because I feel when you living in Mexico, Spanish-speaking country, you are living in Spain, especially Madrid, people speak more Spanish in Madrid than Barcelona. In Barcelona, I heard people speaking nothing but English, and I felt I was back in the USA, and I'm like, really? Why am I here in Barcelona where everyone's like, hi, where is the bathroom? No, mira, what is it? No, what is decir donde está el baño? You should say that, So I felt in Barcelona it was quite dirty. It was very American, very Americanized, very commercialized, I would say. I love the beach, but I know better places like Malaga, Menorca, which is very underrated. I don't know where else. Oh, Galicia is beautiful. Galicia, the north of Spain.
Santander, maybe. Santander.
I have not been, but I want to go. It's on my
Yeah.
list.
Also, they have beautiful
But-
beaches
Yeah.
around.
And Cadiz. I love Cadiz.
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 It's
Cadiz.
In
the south.
In the south?